walks through the snow with burdens too heavy to hold in a dark night of the soul.
That was beautiful, and I'm sorry that Megan couldn't make it to be with us tonight. That would make nice background music too. I did want to just gloss over a few points that events, happenings that occurred recently in our state, so we could bring this closer to home. And then I want to chat with our guests, which is why they're here. In Shelton, in the beginning of June, there was a crime where a man walked into a Cumberland Farms. His name is Justin Bonner. And allegedly, he found the store clerk working alone, female. He threatened to kill her. He threw her in the trunk of his car. He had a knife with him, threatened her. He taped her hands. He had a rope. He beat her with soda cans. She kept trying to escape, and he would keep beating her with blunt objects. Eventually raped her. She was able to escape, and his excuse was he was on angel dust at the time and doesn't remember a thing. Just last week, there was a 90-year-old woman allegedly raped by a 66-year-old man. She'd been in his care for 2 years and finally had the courage to break her silence. That one just... And I believe that was a different... Another case that came out in West Haven, a woman in her 70s was beaten by her domestic partner with a hammer. He was also in his 70s. She woke up to him beating her, and he took the cell phone away so she couldn't call the police, told her he was going to come back to kill her. She eventually was able to walk to the neighbor's house. Here in Connecticut, a gentleman was convicted of domestic violence, several counts, including criminal mischief, reckless endangerment, threatening, assault in the third degree, and kidnapping. He had lived with the victim. They'd been married in 2005. She finally separated from him after many years of violence, yelling, hitting, kicking, blackening her eyes. He contacted her, asked her to meet him because he had something to give her. Turned out what he had to give her was a gun to her face. Drove her to a friend's house where he said all his friends who were there at the house were going to rape her. That didn't happen, and he alleged he was just joking. He then, over a series of days, would follow her in his car until eventually he ran her off the road. A witness to running her off the road figured out that this was domestic violence and got her away from there, but he continued to harass her with repeated phone calls and so forth and so on. A physician in the state of Connecticut was convicted of sexually assaulting several patients who would come in, and he would give them what he called breast examinations, which somehow included kissing and otherwise exposing breasts and down to pelvic bone, sucking on the breasts, and asking his patients out to lunch and other behaviors, and that was multiple patients that occurred. And the question is, why does this happen and how does it happen today? And I'm going to give one example, and I'm not making this example in any kind of political context because I know a certain person is running for office. But Linda McMahon's campaign is going to be running a commercial for her campaign. And in the commercial, she will be addressing her history with the World Wrestling Entertainment industry as, well, it's just a soap opera. Well, let me tell you the story of the soap opera. In the soap opera, it features the abuse of women, including simulated rape and necrophilia. In one instance, we have footage, or this article author has footage of her husband in the ring forcing a woman to strip, saying, "Take your clothes off. Now, damn it, get down. Damn it, bark like a dog." That's just one example of our societal acceptance of this. So I think at this time what I'd like to do is introduce my guests, Roberta Souls, sitting on the left of your screen. Roberta is an artist in Norwich, and you are currently at Eastern?
Yes.
And your goal is a master's in art therapy. And to her right is Gail Redmond, a friend of ours who's been on the show before. You'll recognize her. And she makes jewelry. And we're just going to talk about our experiences in general. We're not going to get too intimate with our experience, but we all have faced violence against women in different ways. And welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
So how did you get interested in this degree, and what was your experience that pushed you into focusing your art in that way?
I didn't know when I first started school what I wanted to do. So I started general studies, I went into psychology, started taking sociology classes, but it was my experience, my own personal experience with domestic violence, and my learning how to deal with it using art that pushed me to go into an art therapy degree.
It's your experience with domestic violence?
Yes.
With a spouse or a partner?
With a spouse.
With a spouse. And Gail, you've had experience. Do you want to just touch on how violence has affected your life?
Well, I've had sexual abuse as a child. I was raped by knife point, and the man I was involved in my life till I was 33 years old all abused me.
And we share. I was sexually abused and physically abused as a child in my home with my natural father and two brothers. My two brothers then developed a habit of sexually abusing and physically assaulting me as well as they developed into little men. And then I went into a couple of different controlling marriages. Ended up in a domestic violence relationship. I've also been raped at knife point, and I've been stalked here recently. So it's like, even when you know what's going wrong, people are going to say, well, if you knew that you were picking the wrong guy, why didn't you, how long were you with him? 33 years? Why didn't you leave?
I was with different men in 33 years, but I was always attracted to that like a gangster type person. And I guess I felt like I deserved it.
I know with a friend of mine who's currently in this situation with small children, I know that she definitely has low self-esteem and needs some kind of reassurance on a daily basis that she's loved. And for some reason, there's this appearance of this denial that I know I went through, and I'm guessing she's going through, where somehow this will change, and underneath all the violence is love.
Well, part of that is part of the cycle of violence, the honeymoon stage, and it progresses. It doesn't happen right away. You don't go out on the first date and the guy hits you.
Right.
He wines you, he dines you, he is very nice to you, your family, your friends, gaining everybody's trust, but behind closed doors he could be a completely different person.
Right. And what I've seen in this relationship is she's been on the verge twice of hopping on a plane and getting away from him, and each time it's taken one conversation with him to get talked into staying. Which, when we see that cycle, everybody around her, including me, is trying to educate her and trying to share my experience, our